The way science works versus CIER is extremely important. If you ever lose science, you lose all of CIER. I just did a giant lecture you're seeing on screen of what CIER is, which is the update to science and the knowledges and law juxtaposed as ma-made concept called dunes, instead of man-made concept called laws or theories. And unlike concept that has laws and rationals, thought there is overlap and allows thought of that overlap in women, and when science and cells do not. Outside of cell, outside of cell, like the staff, because I spelled it wrong, and it's dragon tits again on it. The first law is Newton's third law of motion, now applied to sand dunes theory. So the terms you need to know are seeds, newtons, and existence. And I guess I'll link this in the description, and just copy that, and let's get going. What is a concept? A concept is a thing like strawberries, an identity like misunderstanding that image as a thing, which we'll label 2, but that is the old version 2. And instead of 1, which would be perfect for the shape we drew it as instead of a traditional strawberry, we would label this sat, which is the update to 1 for our time period. 1 is classified when it is the word 1 as the way it is circle or square wrong. How it is wrong by an offset called a slope. So the distance, the level of the distance, and the history of the thing towards a y-axis as if it can be removed, which can be by seconds, z in CIER, but not science, and the history of how you would measure that together. So guessing by the levels it should be together and how far or close that would be. So x versus z is not doable on this image if it's science. If you add y at the top or add y at the bottom, even if you remove and scribble it out or replace it with an image, because the circumference would be diagonal, which would be technically a version in CIER of it horizontal on a circle alone, because diagonal is always between systems of it. It's never on it. As to why people with blindnesses updates can still see screens, it is what they're willing to understand on the screen, and why it's still good to have those limitations for people who cannot see, as blind is a lack of sight, and so is ticks, which is the update that Tommy Edison has versus the old system blinds. He only is blind in one way, and that's by closed eyes in that old system. So the eye and how you understand it would only be through science, because it is an old man-made concept of understanding how we see what is in front of us. So I could see 2 right in front of me. So each number in science and CIER has a name. So in science, it's usually still referred to as 2, but the updates equate to things and are called things because it's always expanding. 1 is usually not what it's called in science, but usually 12. In the history of 12 being used for this, and then this is actually extremely important for rounding and concepts of numbers and lateral damage. What is lateral damage? Lateral damage is the history of dubs and languages, identities of those languages, how you sound in those languages if you were to speak them properly versus improperly. So to understand a circle versus a diagonal, as a diagonal is a type of shape that is loopy, wobbly, as rounded. So I guess it would be a lot of specific lines on a y-axis, because it's a type of thing that is bent towards the side of the left. So this is left, it goes this way. This is right, it goes this way. I guess even if you said it, you would know that left is on the first closed eye and right is on the other closed eye and like of a face. And even if you're blind and you can't feel your eyes close, you could do it with your fingers and now fully understand how it would work. And they could be closed all the time, or silver magic powers, because I'm his sighted friend and lying about being sighted. And this is how you would find that out. So I guess altogether that is a way to understand the y-axis, because you can use metaphors to say one stupid thing, and I'm only picking Harry Potter a lot because I'm on the set of that movie, and it's how you prove a tenacity, which is 3 groups of diagonal y, versus an age, which is a straight cause to effect of start to stop, with pauses to count it. And the problem is youth disorders are very real. They are only over on age, and when they hit tenacity, they are mixed because of the groups of cultural values on the age. You can teach someone to be one age and mentally act another, and that is usually tenacity, which is a group of three things. It's how mature you are, debates of religion on God, where mine would not be 27, but 3 until skepticism and atheism, cultural tots. So I'm taught to be as mature as a 27-year-old, but I'm only ever technically a 3-year-old in this way, because I will keep saying cuz kid and cuz God until you understand you cannot rape the baby because it has a clitoris. Seriously, that is the exact politician it is based on. That is the exact theory it is based on. That is exactly how it works and operates. So, I mean, all of that mixed with how you have sex or don't, where I'm stuck at 16. And because these other two things are real debates about God, which a 16-year-old will do as an atheist, which I am, and then how young you appear innocently. The problem with 16 as a neuter thing, and the reason it's the start of all youth disorders as only me until they spread, is that it's a common one in tenacity disorders. It is not a common one in youth disorders. So to understand this, we could have a YXZ slope. And a reminder, it has to be towards the left and curved. Kind of like how you open or close a clenched fist or hear or don't hear a beep. And it could be torture to play beeps over and over again, unless for a lesson where it be removed as the torture because it is a lesson like waterboarding experiments. So if I go to the left where the X is, so that's the first half of my body versus the second half until I turn around, and then I keep turning around till I know, called the scientific method, meaning I repeat till I get a common thing it all is, and then I have the final answer as steps of a certain kind of methodology without one solid explanation, but often one's taught as solid explanations, because the second we updated science to CIER, we had too many ways of the scientific method until certain parts of 8 and 9, which is repeat till it's insane or male. And that was all that it really kept as all of them instead of the original fucking model it was. So I guess then you can put numbers on here and put them on a scale. So a scale is like a measure of top to bottom to all of it. And to do scales, it would be 1, 2, 3. It doesn't work in CIER or its updates. It doesn't work in certain magical principles. It works in science, and you can mix science and CIER together, which is why you would need a z-axis of the in-between, the middle, how we apply it, why the GED is stupid and won't let me pass it so I can time travel again. I would love to pass my GED. All the math is wrong on it, and I'm just supposed to keep correcting it till they agree I'm 16. Well, I had my sweet 16 like they demanded. I can't wait to be fucking 16, and that's the metaphor of a kid, because sad kid. Because sad kid is actually a real value in CIER that you can understand. It is called two. Two's concept in metaphors and explaining in CIER, not CIER, which is magi, and not science, where you would still use sex, a different number sound for the letter, would honest to God be sad kid versus sad watermelon potato. It has to be absurdist in science sometimes, just to make sense when you know certain science theories, which would be roach theory, the things that all races are created equal until you prioritize only one of them, or Krill's blood color Slytherin. Over and over again with different diagonals of each race would cause time travel and lapse by areas, distance, and land. That is called roach theory. It is proven if it is a theory and not a hypothesis and not a concept, until magic powers are made up fantasy people if it's a concept. And concepts are not variables, they're replacements in CIER, which means by logic it would have to be, because you respect the fantasy thing by a math thing. Yes, but that's not a thing in science, so you'd really have to use a theory. And then when you mix them together, you have not dunes, which are updated from laws and theories because there's an opinion of them that is removed for the logic in that way of a variable. So let's get this straight. A variable means it's totally true because there's a concept of fantasy that you can match to real numbers somewhere we have evidence of, or a test or something. So because it's technically a thing, we have a test of why 4 over 3 equals 1. We have a proof. We've done the square root of pi, which it's an extra version of in CIER, other than 2.137, which is when I deduced the square root of pi, with parentheses, brackets, and variables. And so the history of why the GED is often wrong and supposed to let you in no matter what with a certain amount of times is true, because you're supposed to be able to add them all up to get new science. If you can't do that, you have failed it, but we did run out of science and now we have more, which is why it went extinct in some locations for only CIER and magic in place of it called alchemy. Alchemy is great. It assigned birds and ducks to all of this. It would assign it as tall and short and shoes and fun things, and then you'd be allowed to understand all of it because you're stupid elitist or don't have Tourette's, because you're a woman only, and because you have a nice suit. And science would just allow this because you're using a specific table of it, meaning a specific group of those things. So variables are kind of like all of this is proven because of one fantasy concept or opinion or disorder or just the way it works as my pain level specifically, and I proved it somehow, and it's now totally fucking fine to have. It is totally fucking fine to be okay. Unlike a law and theory, which is true all the time because we fucking made it by over time. That's a theory, and we explained it too much using numbers. That's a theory. And then a law is we explained it through the update to numbers called ticks or tenacities, which is also the word for age as to why it's based on that kind of so morbidly. The problem with all of this is it means science has stupid things that only work for some things some of the time that make no sense any other time, because a variable would still give you a lot of metaphors to understand it, explaining something through like, as, and comparing stuff. You would just always be able to understand a variable because they would explain it to you using Harry Potter. They would explain it to you using SpongeBob. They'd explain my Tourette's syndrome that I usually black out and cut out on my videos, but didn't right there because it can make my Tourette's go off like a fucking siren. It can fucking trigger my Tourette's, and it can make them happen when I usually have them silent until foreign languages. Yes, but people still think I'm intentionally saying it because I trained it into words, which is why variables allow you to train Tourette's. And the law of Tourette's is that it's supposed to be hard to do. The theory of it is that anyone can do it, but it's stupid when you understand it through squiggles. Really, it's just absurd that you would get the little kid thing because of it. It's ridiculous that you would actually notice it going off only because we're talking about it. But that means I can't train it if I'm nervous or wrecked by it, which is actually 6 or watermelon in science. The concept of watermelon is called a trait. A trait, when we always understand it by a number in the way that it exists, is called a trait. As to why my family denies I have Tourette's, says I'm loud-mouthed and mean about atheism, and pretends it's over as their variable. Hold on, sorry, something just went off on my computer. That's awkward. It won't shut up. Please shut up. Okay. Sorry, that's my computer and not my phone at which I'm filming. And so in general, people can't just have words coming out of their mouth consensually. That's a variable called disorder, and it happens with Tourette's, even if you're totally sane as a weird loophole of it. The problem with all of this is that watermelon is why my tenacity is so mature. I could lecture you on advanced science while still being 8 years old because gummy bears. Because I just kind of like gummy bears a lot. And that's why I'm stopping at the Harry Potter set. So I guess watermelon is 6 and sad boy is 2. And it's law. So everything equating to sad boys and how often you could do one male or female as a pair of them together. So there you go. That sound would make sense as scratching to blind people. I'm trying to accommodate a lot. So sad boys is actually the understanding of twos in science, laws, and reasons. And watermelon is the understanding of 6, not sex, as the history of inertia and identity and everything. They said to keep going. Okay. And so the difference is science is ruled by the old version 6 and how it operates as female adjacent groups. So how females work by this exact symbol and the way it works in science, because each symbol kind of in alchemy, which is a version of proven science and magic together as equating things and making them work. Proving magic is real. We don't have proof of all of magic yet. We will always get proof of it. The problem is why a lot of it is undetermined stuff till you keep getting it right, because you're secretly doing almost science things that built it, and we just don't have equations. So the Mars symbol for females and how we understand it, right down to the Roman language, the way it works, all of that as like the version 6. And that is the version watermelon. So it's absurd stuff. It doesn't make sense until magic. You remove the magic and it's just beautifully ironic and stupid that it's different than you. And it's okay that it's different than you. And it's all of that because it's worth a bleed or a tenacity. And it makes sense even if you don't get what that should be as for age or the curse system. Sad boys it would work for all girls ever until it was sad and male because of gender differences and because of how we feel penis versus vagina as those older systems, as it's all the science used to have to work on, not nooks and crannies. It only seriously had penis and vagina. And so you have one thing that is completely nice by being cruel, one thing that's by being sad and evilly nice by being another, and then one will always be cruel to take from the other, and you have 1, 2, and 3 as the concepts in science and how they work. The problem with CIER is this is why women will usually be too cruel in science fields unless they agree to have on an extra nice thing that's male only, or it's mixed with other concepts. It's always supposed to be to just even allow them in until fields of research, because it means they'll want to take something in experiments. It's really naturally what would happen if it's so nice it's evil, so nice it's evil because sad, and easy to take because evil. The history of why it would be a gender difference is something women are thinking about green and lipstick right now, because science has an accidental sex thing. Yes, automatically all the time in magic and science, or you'd be kind of harmed as the person in those experiments. Granted it later because you did them. It's naturally why science is male only, because it's supposed to be bringing your aspects down to life in lower things. And the problem is you would delusionally think your downstairs and upstairs of boobs and tits were alive. It's why science is for men only and taught to women so they understand it, but to treat a man as a woman will make him into hating it, as to why I hate science, as Albert Einstein. But I'm his Arkin's case, and my name is Adam, and I'm cool. So the history of all of that, because gummy bears, is kind of what science is versus CIER. The reason CIER doesn't have this is because it does it by groups of 5, where mixed things together as one solid thing kind of works in whatever your imagination, because it's not phallic and you could be allowed that, would allow it. So the reason women would do CIER and their updates, but not all of it, but females would, is because there's tiny differences of gender that people don't equate to, because 4 is supposed to be men in CIER and 6 is supposed to be women. Well, you could just keep going a third time of all the cruel things until you got something new. Well, that's division. So 1, 1, 1. I have 3 things in a orb. I do 1 divided by 2 plus 3. So then I add 3 more and then I divide it by. I got 1 divided by 2 equals 3. And so now I know how many that would work. How does that work? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. It does. We just added an extra 3 to determine it. We added 6 together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now I just do 3 twice. And now I know if I have 3 as the big one, of it all together, 1, 2, and then counted together is 3. And then the tiny ones, 1 and 2, 1 divided by 2 equals 3. It's just actually what it would mean, and it's only because we have those updates to it that it exists. And so I guess in general, having that conversation is why 3 6s would be the square root of 7 as if pi, meaning one thing can match another thing if it doesn't change what it truly is by reputation, called a variable. So variable versus slope. Because if I drew images, the way I understand it could be the natural causation of official representations of it and what it officially comes to mean. And so I guess all of that would be how you determine which version it would be, which one's reacting back then versus now, and how you would layer it over just to see and deal with incompetent students or great teachers. And I guess that's how you do it. So yin and yang officially represents karma. The drawing thus has to equate to something in a limited sphere in some system ever. If it can't ever change ever, it's because 4 equates to 2 in CIER, and that is correct. When it's only male, it is 2 in CIER. When it is male and female, it is 4, because male nice, male cruel, 2. Male nice but extra option, 3. And then if you divide 3 by 2 in that same method of all of this plus the drawings counted, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 keeps repeating, and then it's 2 in an extra box because it's how often you add or subtract. So you add something or you remove something. You would now have 1 divided by 4, because 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's stuff drawn extra here, would be 3. But 3 would turn into 2 if I drew it this way. And now you know why 1 equals 2 and 3 equals 4. And that's how you are to do them differently in CIER versus science as to the differences of them. So this lecture is on axolotls and tenacity disorders. Time travel is proven. It's a theory and not an apocalypse. God is not proven in CIER. The concept respected is proven in CIER. And in the end, CIER would recount it as so much of it was respected, we had to equate it to properly before I sound like a bimbo Japanese horny schoolgirl. In Spanish, it is a language of 1-1-6-1 as to how we keep missing 3 until it's only 2, and the 2 count for one big one as watermelon. We're just going to make that up and use it in the language of the, at, the, because languages are by subjects, objects, and verbs, and it's how it all works together. It's why you would choose science to CIER. Choosing magic would give you both of them, and then you would just keep doing it till it updates or you learned it all. And that would be the reason. So axolotl fins have 1, 2, 3, 4 counted as 1 because it's a big pause, and you can just do that to 1, 2, 3 in the system. And that's supposed to be Spanish. So axolotls are Spanish. The problem is every language has an origin language that is bigger than it if this is how you would do the origin counted as all of that together. And that means Mexico is a language. That means Mexican is a language, and it means Spanish is a language as well. That would count for both of them somehow, meaning it was spoken there or actually there if these were pieces of land, and it just had to be somehow also on it. You would draw it in it, and that means that happened there, or that was the location there, as to how we explain the variable wonton or ton in magic, and that would apply now to the theory of nuclearium and equilibrium, meaning if something falls and it moves too much, it would cause static electricity. I don't have time to explain together, but by rubbing stuff together, by clapping, by making sounds, you could rediscover all of science if it's missing in a time period or a location by explaining too much CIER and its updates and then picking the one that works better, and it was likely would not be science. How likely that would be land, because land and stuff is time, and that's what's discovered in roach theory. Roach theory is so specific, I explained it before because I have a short attention span, and what it is we're explaining time travel by things happening over and over and over again, by being somehow land, because they make no sense to wibbly and wobbly, or specifically absurdisms of 6. Like, you could explain it through these exact scenarios in 6. You can't do that. You can't just do that. That's not okay. That's black magic powers. That will never be science or literacy. Yes, it will, because we're explaining it. We're going through the motions of it. We're saying, and that's how you understand this through it. You can't just shut down science and magic because it's hard to understand and pretend they are each other. That's something real in science. It is called alchemy. It's adding all of it together and making it somehow the same thing. And by doing that through similarities, you have why some things will just work through pulling stuff together. By performing many experiments with unknown factors by old things that work, because magic is now technically proven. Magi isn't, strawberry milk tea isn't, Wicca isn't as an update. So none of sonnet is proven in our time period, and one day, as we can predict now with this, based on how well it sounds, will be, because I'm doing the math in my head and I'm writing it out in a way you can't, because scribbles can be used to determine what you're saying, and metaphors as a secret coding layer over, and that's how we understand all of it. So the problem with tenacity is that it's 3 groups, like an axolotl fin, which is aquatic. So we're going to explain through pools, because it can be 3 to 2 regardless. One can always be chopped off and will be if it's an axolotl fin, because the animal is real and exists, but is considered fantasy when in the right colors. People know white axolotl fish exists. The fact that you are suddenly looking at the real cute drawing is now considered magic powers. So I won't pull up a photo. So 1, 2, 3. How innocent you are, how good you are at debating religion and trained to do that as a cultural value of all of it. And everything else I explained of the third option you should have remembered by now, which is honest to God how it was trained as the other 2, kind of as another way to say that, which would be debates of it, because there's a lot of different things, because it's 3 minor things as one big one. So I guess tenacity is 3 things: how mature you are, how you're trained to act, and how that reflects religion, and how that is debating and not debating of whether or not I can drive. Now, I know I can never unless it's a motorcycle or a broom for some reason, or consider those things as honors, and I'm tricked into it somehow out of respect. And that's how you determine age, gender, and race, or special things like Native America, and how it would not be offensive, and you can't tell because of the art style or not, because you just do not know Native America. And the history is not knowing is usually considered the third option, but sometimes it's the first, marked by male, other as male, and female, or the third is the other, on regard male as a choice if it could make one, but can't because it's an other. So now you know why women are allowed CIER and science through CIER, but would prefer until our update next eternity not to have science if it's about everything becoming explained down there and in the chest area. Women would probably not prefer it, but this does prove through how we're doing laps as concept over concept over concept. They had to have somehow universally chosen that in older time periods. As Albert Einstein, I have Archons, a disorder that skips and not skips. So this is the explanation for Archons and youth disorders, which is GED is supposed to just let you in on after too many attempts by jumping the point of watching a lecture that you have made. For real. GEDs are very specifically elaborate. The fact that you don't know that's what E stands for, Igor, and this is what Igor is. Igor is logic and reason, allowance because of exception, because of unique. The argument of insanity, remove that. The argument of diagnosis, remove that. Well, what I specifically put out that was stupid, selfish, and allowed, like adoptions or lawsuits, allowed that. Rounded, allowed that. So I keep passing my GED, but because they don't know the science I'm doing on the paper, I am not allowed to pass it a third or fourth time until I had waited this long and had a Sweet 16 as a lawsuit I won about it. They said, sure, that'll be a scientific test that we can prove. So these scribbles are 1, 5, X, Y, 2, 3, 7. So pi is now 6 for our equation, because you can just actually apply it as like, this is 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9. It doesn't have to be pretty in science. 10, 11. 12, 13. So all of this equates to 1 in the middle, but if you do it all together and you round it all together, it would equate to 6, because people are not counting the E and instead thinking it's a letter on the slope. Oh, well, there's 3 points to that E. All of this is how much it counts as those points, as all of this, and I don't have time to get into the equation of Numaki, which I just drew. So that is actually, which is usually drawn with slants and stuff to make it easier. Fine, this means 6. Okay, fine. We have a drawing that means 6 of doodles. Okay. There are 6 ways to understand male and female till other is the 6th option. 1, I'm sad because of my chest. 2, I'm sad because my chest and my age, wanting it to be bigger and not bigger yet, wanting it to be wrinkling or sagging and not sagging yet, wanting it removed, called 2. We'll just make that 2. So 2 is sag. With age comes sag, or you're sad, and it can happen younger as fucked in the head, which would be 3. Mentally unwell, mentally unstable, fucked in the head. Why I should patch my GED, and this is my timed video that we sent them. More stuff over to prove that I can just fucking do math, but not in a classroom setting. Yes, this would be the scenario classroom setting. So classroom setting in English. When you're in a classroom, you have a limited ways you can do things. You have you as observing, which is one style of it, over the real observation, which is the second thing that we're counting as what's in this picture. Then you have the person teaching you and the references. And I just draw a cool guy. And so, yeah, you have like the teaching and the references and stuff. So you have 3 equations for this scenario. You have how you notice it, how you observe it, the actual observing of it, and the person interacting with the observation. If you somehow are observing with it, it would be canceled out to be someone in the room, because we're using 6 and it's absurd. And the thing about watermelon seeds is how you plant them, how you dry them, and how you do it with really weird methods that don't make sense. Fine, some of this doesn't make sense because you don't know what a classroom is. You can't just imagine you're watching yourself. It's called third person perspective, and this is now explained. Can you think that you would watch it in the third way, or imagine someone else in a scenario like a movie? Can you see that movie in front of you? Is a movie a video like what you're watching right now somehow, or something live action or explainable? Good. As a result, you can imagine seeing someone else, and you can imagine yourself as that someone else, even if there's different ways and literality of it. That's actually how shadows are supposed to work in general, and why sometimes they can literally be someone else or be you with a painted face and weird stuff like it. So yeah, that's actually how we understand it, because you have to paint a watermelon sometimes to keep it growing with seeds. And the problem is, this would never plant a watermelon. It's a melon seed. The problem is if you painted it green, and if it works by how much it looks like it to grow it as seeds, and you painted it like a watermelon, then you let it turn red, or you dyed it red, or you promised it over and over it would be red, and it was somehow alive and it would just be seen as red. You then take out the seeds and plant it. You now can plant watermelon through melon seeds. It just would work if it's what it looks like and it's painted to look like it too much and seen as that painting too much at a level of the third. Well, what if it's one or the other? Well, then you have melon seeds or you have watermelon seeds, because you took away painting, you took away how you know about it, so you can't even think to do that, or you trust it insanely over and over again till it works, which is the immature innocent setting, not the debates on religion, until very specific things have honored and trained into. So you could just make something look like something else, and it would have to be honored until it's impossible somehow. And that could just be usually a gender preference of women as adults. So if it just keeps picking transgender, it would not be able to, technically speaking. If it keeps deciding it's mentally one thing and another, even if it's never true, it was born it. Even if you had to check through hospitals, it was born it, or it's insane to keep picking that. Like a white woman in Wicca in mental wards, as examples. Feel free to use this as a logo teacher. I'm making this for who's watching me. Like in general, that's the mind. The mind, if it keeps picking a broken thing, would always pick male as this option or insane as this option, which is a concept in magic and alchemy called onion. Well, you keep doing it till it finally, as what you kept picking, arrange that new thing. Well, that's a third, and you said no thirds. You said one or the other, so we don't even have my gender. We have male or we have female, and they look like each other and they act like each other. How am I ever? You have to allow a third. You would thus, as a result, if you kept picking it for that male option and it's just not real, allow male to be the third somehow. You just agree to the insane only on that level. Fine, we'll honor it. Well, now you can have that third of planting watermelon to look like melon. Well, if you painted the melon in reverse, would it work? Halfway. It's because it's already a thing to plant watermelon seeds. It's not a thing to plant melon seeds. You would have to nurture, butter it, and change the insides, and then you could really get a melon or something new and unique as life out of it. You couldn't, because you can't go back from why watermelon seeds always allow this, but melon seeds don't, and you could turn a melon into a watermelon. You could not easily turn a watermelon into a melon. They're different foods for different reasons, and they look very similar as to why it would work. Technically, it would be harder, but you could even do it with strawberry seeds and watermelon. Strawberry seeds often mimic other seeds and would do back, so you could train the strawberry seeds to be the melon. So no, if someone has a youth disorder, they are physically and biologically a different age, and there's a mental third from insanity, even if it's fully sane as that option. So I am 16 and physically 7. The problem is if arcans and tenocities are real, which we now know they are in CIER, which are provable as this is a Dune theory and scientific method, well, then you could skip around ages till you settle on one from comfortability. You could train which one it would be, and you could train it for too long or too little. You could then train 16, and my family and the Native American tribes trained me into 16, and just my word would have to count because of how level we've lapped this. We keep lapping by 4 and 5, so reason and logic divided by 7 equals 10. Well, that was all the math on the GED. Do you see the problem now? You kept saying 1 and 2. You would not allow 3. Well, I send you the video. You must now allow 3, white man. You must now say native real. We real as Cherokee feather people. You allow third option. Train real. Good white man. Best puppy dog. He be puppy dog. Fox allow puppy. Mean baby animal younger only. Good. Now mean fox. Good. Now fox allow puppy. Woman be. Okay, good. Now you get it. You can be 3 ages at once. It's called a tenacity. The problem is that in magic, that would mean all of this equals to 2. So 4 plus 5 with division counting for something on the page. When I drew this once and I drew this second, would be I drew this second. 1, 2. I drew 2 things over it. So now you know, you just have to allow 3 on the GED, even if that means 5 to 3 more tasks, but never 7 or 8, or you're trying to steal money from it. So you can be 3 ages at once and it counts for only one of them. Yes, until you have a disorder of the insane thing. Then you mixed science and you mixed age and you mixed the insane thing, which is a third only option. Now you really do have 3 separate ages. You have a tenacity disorder. But to have 2 separate ages, you have a youth disorder. So my youth disorder is I'm 7 years old, but I'm mentally 16. Well, now it makes perfect sense. So you just quiz me like a 16-year-old, and now you allow all my tests. You get all the science to it. So your test was stupid and made no sense, and I promised to fix it, but now you have to count every spirit world incarnation because it's trusting the insane thing by word of mouth, and first-person perspectives limited are, would only a woman argue that? And now you have a stupid racism against women that you do not like as to why they're not in science, because that was really what the group wanted back in prehistoric time periods. We don't know. They thought water and walks meant fire only ever and nothing more because you wanted only 2. You have your male option. You have your female option. You can keep only 2, but male is now also allowed insane male as a group. Fine, because, I mean, they can't just be insane. You did just demand we proved red hair in a mental ward when you only saw Japanese people. There are Japanese redheads, though. You just did not know that much. So, race is a factor. Rape is a factor because it took a lot of non-consensual to get this far. And then why it's okay because if it's insane, it's happy is a factor that counts for only one of them. The problem with tenacity and its update over this is why it would instantly equate to all of this as you mix the third male and allow a third one if normal and not insane because we have this explanation. What if I didn't have this explanation? You just asked me to prove a third gender. Insanity counts as a gender. You cannot take it away without removing male gender. You would have female only things and lose a lot of everything ever as an experiment. You can undo it by accepting a video counting as it, which a GED naturally does anyways, but I have no way to send to you, so my representative will send it for you because I don't know your email and that's my insane level or I turned woman. You now just have to agree with that from the circumstances. So my tenacity cannot let me do things that are labeled cruel or women, but that is a very unique thing. That means I have a youth disorder, also 16, which is possible, but usually I've grown that won't because I means I was the first one with it. All of this would be 5 plus 6 plus 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 by logic, reason, and SAG equal gender dysphoria or fantasy concepts, which is 6 by watermelon. But how did we just randomly get 6? It makes no sense. We can't count anything on the screen that counts for 6. Yes, how often does 6 appear on screen? 1, 2, 3. How often does 3 appear on the screen now? 1, 2. Sometimes you just have to draw it out. Sometimes you just need to feel it out. Sometimes you have to be cited for these things. So I guess 3 divided by 16 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, so now we have 16 options with this middle line counting. And there's no middle line here. So we'll put a little dash or an X. So that'd be 1, 2, 3. Well, now we have 16. That can be in 3 groups. So 16 divided by 3 with the update to numbers known as Sombers in some groups of time period would probably be 3 is the Somber. So a third of 16 is 3, but not its update fet. Not its update third, not its update sext, not its update tentum, not its update filter. Only 3 because it's the old system of those old explanations as to how it's all applied. So you can be 3 ages at once, but the problem with tenacity disorders means if you count a spider, it has 8 legs. If you did something intimate to the spider, it would rip off those legs. You can rape someone into multiple ages skipping around then. You just have to be. If it has 3 settings and 8 is an option at all, with non-con already a thing on the third in general as to why it creates the second or becomes the third as wanting the second. If you add instead of 9 or instead of 7, which would fit 3 or 16 better, now that you have all these other options for how you count 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, altogether 16, because 8 plus 8 equals 16, which means it's 2 for it, and it's insane to even know the numbers. Fine, you remove the insane when you're back to 1 and 2 and you can't paint watermelon, but that's just not possible. You're demanding the impossible. Fine, you add 8 to only the woman. Okay, well, now nothing works, and we kind of don't even have numbers, because we only have 4 of everything, and that's still only 2, and we're back where we started with nothing. You made nothing. You erased a lot of stuff somehow, because you took it back and made only less groups of it. Fine, we're screwed. What do? You add a second one. Now you add the third again. You have to have 3 of everything with them counting 2 sometimes. Male, female, other mentally. That would still be male, okay? Or insane mentally. That would be male, but make more sense female. Well, now you have a third, meaning women can have tenacity disorders. They cannot have youth disorders, and you cannot check by someone's birth number. So if a birth number was, I can't tell, and I assume female, or if they kept lying female because of a hot factor or a hidden thing, fine. Someone says they're male, they're just technically then male. It's just technically going to count. Or it's insane so hard that it would pick an insane thing somehow, like delusional harmony as my name, and thus be the reason that you would have to have it, because the third would be fine insane because male is only insane. Yeah, sometimes that's tragic, because a woman would be sane for wanting to milk the baby, for wanting to breastfeed the baby. A guy doesn't have boobs and it would be painful gnawing just to be racist. Why would he ever pick that unless he was the insane male? Well, now we have an option: sane, mentally insane, and insane male. So you can have a disorder that skips around multiple things. It would just be by 9 and stop at woman at the 9th, so it would count for 8, unless somehow 16 as the default, which is in tenacity disorders and my specific youth disorders, but I was my only one condition as a mutation, one of a kind body or DNA that can't be altered as only having one thing. I wanted a normal thing, and I wanted my one thing halfway, so we have tenacity disorders spread to men today, but they come with schizophrenia, and they are caused by rape. And even if agreed upon, it being removed like magic powers is that, or multiple personality disorders, which would count as insane on a sane system because it's the third of those mixed together. It could be half 2 things: half sane, halfly insane is mentally ill, but it's not a mental disorder. They're now different. Okay, fine, they're different. Mental disorders are female and agender. As yes, they're female insane, and both men are sane, but the problem is mental illness is male, female, and insane, looking and being half, adding a 4th, and a 5th would be them kind of mixed together. Well, you now have all of that, and if you had to simplify it, you'd be, well, only in female versions until later. Well, there you go. You can have a disorder like the GED, stupid, as I go in with my pyramid tattoo to take it because Gummy Bear on the set of Harry Potter. Hey, my life is kiddo. I have a disorder where I skip around age. This is now proven. But the problem is, where should we stop? Well, if I keep always saying 16, and that's my insane level, because otherwise woman, and it was trained into me by my tribe as the Cherokee, so much so when I was born, they thought it was a prophecy, and they had to ask for payment later, and in the moment, and now a third time from my family to keep me, right down to treatments only being cults allow, because my insanity would just demand it, and you would have to grant it. Somehow in that mix, if it's religion, mix because insane, and that's the cult option, you give me a cult in place of treatment. Well, now I'm allowed to be sent away again, and I have to finish whatever this is, and it should be my choice if that's a level, because the problem of rape because no choice, so eventually you have to give a choice, and if you kept going of rape because own, rape because better, rape because best own, you'd eventually get because not own, because victim of own, and because that. You'd eventually just have a victim because they were the person that you chose to rape. Well, what do? Well, you let the victim own, and now you have 6 in a cycle to 9 in a cycle because of those mixed togethers. So yes, you can't just have a spider. It does mean humans once have hypothetically fucked a spider, and we proved it through math just now. somehow it spread in age through venom or something, and that would be the explanation because of mixing types of fluids. Fluid, syrup, venom is usually the third option ever with those things of inserted through bite, inserted through touch, inserted through removed. Well, if I had to remove touch, even though it seems obvious because they fucked, that'd be only inserting it through bite, because biting's are a thing with fucking. Someone fucked a spider. People can now have multiple ages at once. Youth disorder, if they identify as only 2 of them. And if they identify as more of them, they're sane or mentally ill forever, and then it's removed by training alone. Well, now you have 7 to 9 like you wanted. Welcome to math. Welcome to logic. You can be 3 ages to 2 at once, and you can be insane in what you do or do not see. When you take out things like eyesight, when you apply how one thing can be another by being trained into it, even if you're lying from it, you can just have multiple ways to see. And the problem with me being blind is it now proves this is all okay, but needing to be cautionary. And you can't just do it overnight for some reason to everyone ever but me. But I'm at level 3 and you're like level 18 to 20 and you now know your mental age and you know why it doesn't match and it doesn't count for any of this. You just kind of know. I don't, because mine are stupidly 7, 16, and 3. Because I think you're stupidly religious and you now know the difference. So yeah, tenacity is 2 disorders, 3 or a mental illness in its place a 3rd, because you can train a mental illness even if it's mistaken, like me and schizophrenia. Sometimes I will have very different diagnoses and that's proof. Or you could be 2 at once because of this 3rd and what it should be. Male, only male, male ever, male ever, male ever. Doesn't matter if that's Siamese twin, only male until I'm special chosen one stuff. Because a 3rd sometimes as that allowance to create it would be like one of a kind granting it. You do have to acknowledge, even if you don't like religion, that's why I don't respect you in this argument. That has been the Dune of concepts. So it's called the Dune of concepts or conceptual Dune theory. Dunes are provable because of philosophy. This is the Andrew Hussey philosophy. Ashley eats watermelon. Or framing Aldrich for a school shooting as to why I was approached on Tumblr and did nothing at Columbine. I wasn't even attending the school. I was with a treatment team, and then I left with the treatment team after stopping a few school shootings that everyone had to go into missing persons with me about. So, yeah, the insane option was letting them shoot me because I thought it would make me male. I was right, it did, and that was totally worth it. If it was worth it in the end, or justified in the end, it counts as the 3rd. Well, I don't count for 3rd options because they're male. Well, I guess you have to grant it because I'm male and only a woman would fail math like that. Well, what if it's not gendered? Well, only a sane person will fail math like that. So you just invented math? Well, technically I did, and you secretly now know that, and you can drop it because I did it to be insane. It just proved it to you, though. I don't know how. I don't know why. My name is Akron's Locket. I have been your teacher, Adam Snowflake, and my birth name is Samantha Cohen on a lot of bad documents I don't like, and they really have been filed. They should just allow that court now.